Robby, what's on your radar?
Well, during the 77-minute period in which nearly 400 police officers took no collective action to engage and neutralize the Robb Elementary mass shooter, who had trapped dozens of dead and wounded second-grade students inside a classroom with him, one officer can be seen heading down the hallway toward the killer's location, according to recently released body cam footage that went viral on social media recently. The officer was Ruben Ruiz of the Uvalde Police Department. Ruiz was aware of the situation because he had received a call from his wife, Eva Morales, who was a Robb Elementary teacher. Unfortunately, Morales was actually trapped inside the classroom with the shooter. She had been shot and she was dying of a gunshot wound. In this footage, this new body cam footage, Ruiz can be seen hurrying past other officers and approaching the classroom, gun in hand. He is stopped. He is held back as he says, "She said she's shot." He protests that to no avail. Watch this.
Ruben, she said she shot Johnny.
Ruiz previously appeared in some footage that had been released last week, I believe, or before that, where he could be seen checking his phone, and this was cited by some as further evidence of the Uvalde police's lack of urgency at the matter. But now it's more understandable. He was actively prevented from confronting the shooter. His phone was his only means of contacting his wife. Quote, "What happened to Ruiz is that he tried to move forward into the hallway. He was detained and they took his gun away from him and escorted him from the scene," said Texas Department of Public Safety Director Steve McGraw during a hearing last month. So this recent footage matches that description of what took place. Actions taken by other police officers to actively prevent one of their own from attempting to resolve the situation are consistent with what was happening outside the school, where officers restrained and even handcuffed parents who were desperately trying to intervene. One mother, Angelique Gomez, was handcuffed and arrested but escaped custody, entered the school anyway, where she actually found and rescued her own children. Here she is explaining what happened.
Right away as I parked, U.S. Marshals started coming toward my car saying that I wasn't allowed to be parked there. And he said, "Well, we're going to have to arrest you because you're being very uncooperative." I said, "Well, you're going to have to arrest me because I'm going in there, and I'm telling you right now, I don't see none of y'all in there. Y'all are standing with snipers and y'all are far away. If y'all don't go in there, I'm going in there." He immediately put me in cuffs. Once I jumped it, I went to my son's class and I knocked on the door, and I remember the teacher saying, I'm like, "Hey, they're already bulge cutting the fence to get me." She's like, "You think we have time to get out?" I said, "Y'all have time. I'm gonna run for my other son."
The decision by Uvalde police to wait and wait and wait and wait before confronting the shooter runs counter to all police training on school mass shooting scenarios. Ever since the Columbine mass shooting in 1999, law enforcement has been instructed to immediately rush the shooter without waiting for backup, better equipment, or for the right moment. Uvalde police had also received that training that called for them to confront the mass shooter without delay, according to the New York Times. But on May 24th, 2022, when the shooter attacked the school, the police did everything wrong for more than an hour. They waited for more officers, for tactical gear, for better weaponry. They incomprehensibly failed to procure a key for a door that was not even locked. It was failure after failure after failure, even though some people were still alive inside the classroom, frantically dialing 911 for help. A swifter response, yes, it would have put the officers' lives in greater danger, absolutely, but it would have also allowed medical personnel to assist the victims more quickly. It's not clear how many lives could have been saved this way, if any, to be clear. But every minute the survivors remained trapped in that classroom increased the risk to them, to say nothing of their mental anguish, the trauma they'll be dealing with for the rest of their lives. Ruiz's wife, Eva Morales, she died of her wounds after speaking with him, and when he wasn't allowed to go in and try to rescue her. So, Katie, this is, I think, important to talk about because he was seen in this earlier footage looking at his phone, and a lot of people were saying, oh, my God, it was more example, like because there was the hand sanitizer incident, too. One police officer, using the hand sanitizer. It was indicative of the lack of urgency that the police seemed to be manifesting. But he was talking with his wife on that phone, and he went, as any reasonable person, police officer would. He approached the door and he was held back. And I get that someone who has actually a person in a compromised situation, maybe the police are supposed to say, no, you're not thinking clearly, we're going to handle this. But then they didn't handle it. They waited around. And actually, the impulse to immediately go and attack the shooter, guns blazing, don't wait, is the right one, is what the training says. Throw yourself at the shooter. You will get shot, the next person will get shot, but maybe the third person gets a shot off. That is what they are told to do in these situations. It's what these police specifically were told to do, which is why it's so frustrating that 400 of them sat there for more than an hour.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. I mean, I understand why people initially thought that the man on his phone was another sign of the police irresponsibility. But as you've made clear, that's not what it was. He was communicating with his wife. And again, I also understand you don't want necessarily someone who has an emotional connection to someone in there. Maybe you think they won't think as clearly, they won't be as effective in taking the person out. But as you said, they didn't go in there themselves. So all they did was block someone from potentially offering aid, saving the life of children of his own wife. I mean, it is awful. And you'd think that more out of the hundreds of police who were there, you'd think that more than one would have an impulse to go in. But I guess it's this scary groupthink that happens.
Yeah, because there was so much holding back. There's other footage where there's other police officers going, no, wait, we're not ready. What are you waiting for? It's not what you're supposed to do. It makes no sense. If in the first mass shooting, or the Columbine, the one that inaugurates our horrific era of mass shootings, they didn't quite understand. They thought it was more like a hostage situation. We have to think this through. Now we know. We've had 25 years of these things. That's not what you do. You have to confront the shooters as quickly as possible. And parents wanted to go in, and again, that's a same situation. I understand you don't want to put more people's lives at risk because the police are supposed to be the ones putting their lives at risk,
right, exactly.
And they didn't. And it's this is probably an area of libertarian left overlap. Frustration with the lack of accountability by our police officers, our law enforcement, agents of the state. They work for us. Who will not put themselves in harm's way at all, even though that's literally their job.
Right. I mean, I understand it. I sympathize with fear of death, right? Obviously, but again, that is your job. You're supposed to be doing that, not civilians.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And easy for us. I don't mean it to be, quarterbacking, oh, well, I would have, grabbed the nearest rifle and marched in there.
Yeah.
You don't know how brave you'll be in a life or death situation, but the police have specific training to be brave in a life and death situation, and they have the authority to exercise lethal force in a way that no citizens do. So, and in fact, when they use lethal force wrongly, they have a lot of institutional protection to not be held accountable for it. And I don't like, you and I probably also agree on that we don't like a lot of that institutional protection. But part of the justification for it is that they need to be empowered to do things like intervene in these kinds of scenarios. So if they're also not intervening when they're supposed to, why on earth do they have these protections and this lack of accountability?
Right. I mean, also, if you, again, like you and I are both saying, we don't know what we would have done, but we're not police. So if you don't want to risk your life, then just don't pursue that job.
Right. And plenty of people who are not police were prepared to risk their lives and were actually held back from doing so. So it's
I think it's really sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's really important to emphasize that this was the training. I think a lot of people are confused about that. They're like, well, it's easy to say because you weren't there, but how did they know? But no, that is the protocol. So they violated protocol. Right.
Well, it's we keep talking about this on the show, the Uvalde issue, because the more that comes out, I mean, it's the unendingly horrifying story. Obviously horrifying in what happened, but horrifying too in just the utter disregard for basic the training, it could not be worse in how it was handled, and desperately need to see some accountability there. But we will have more Rising for you right after this.